No MMA promotion was more beloved than Pride Fighting Championships. Its mix of pageantry and elite-level action made it the premier promotion of the early 2000s, and it's still revered by modern fans to this very day. Today, we look at some of the best matches to grace Pride in its decade-long existence, from all-action slugfests to long-awaited dream fights between the sport's all-time greats. Welcome to the INC and to our ranking of the 10 greatest Pride fights. Number 10. Chuck Liddell vs. Guy Mezger. Chuck Liddell's MMA career was synonymous with the UFC, so it may surprise you to learn one of his greatest matches came halfway across the globe. As part of their ongoing feud with Pride, the UFC sent several of its star fighters to compete in Japan, leading to Liddell facing Lions Den's fighter Guy Mezger at Pride 14. Early on, it was Mezger who had the upper hand, countering Liddell several times with crisp boxing combinations and even dropping the Iceman at the end of the opening round. While Liddell found moments of success with his overhand, the Iceman needed to make a statement to earn Mezger's respect, and that came just 20 seconds into the second round.
Chuck trying to take care of business, trying to get control. Oh, it's a knockout! It's a knockout! Chuck Liddell has knocked Guy Mezger out!
Liddell would fight two further times in Pride, winning an epic war with future legend Alistair Overeem and losing in brutal fashion to Quinton Rampage Jackson, before returning to America where he'd become one of the sport's biggest ever stars. Number 9. Kazushi Sakuraba vs. Carlos Newton. Kazushi Sakuraba will always be known for his matches with the fabled Gracie family, but many consider his match with Carlos Newton to be his magnum opus. With both men noted for their grappling, the two men made a gentleman's agreement not to strike during the entire bout, leading to a mix of submission attempts and momentum shifts well ahead of its time for 1998. The match played out at the same pace for the remainder of the fight. Sakuraba threatened kimuras, toe holds, and several arm bars, while Newton looked for triangles and his trademark rear naked choke. In the end, it was a knee bar that proved decisive, giving Sakuraba a second-round submission in what is still regarded as one of the greatest grappling showcases in MMA history. Number 8. Takanori Gomi vs. Tatsuya Kawajiri. Two of Japan's top stars locked horns in 2005, as Takanori Gomi took on Tatsuya Kawajiri in the first round of the Pride Lightweight Grand Prix. Despite both men entering the sport from grappling backgrounds, the fight played out almost entirely on the feet, Gomi tagging Kawajiri with boxing combinations, while his opponent targeted the Fireball Kid with leg kicks and nearly connected with a high kick in the middle stages of the first. As the round advanced, so did the pace of the fight, Gomi hammering Kawajiri with knees, following a stuffed takedown and continuing to break down his opponent with his boxing. While Kawajiri managed to land some big overhands, he eventually wilted to the damage dealt by his unrelenting opponent, allowing Gomi to take his back and score the rear naked choke finish. Gomi would go on to claim the tournament after wins over Luis Azeredo and Hayato Sakurai, in the process establishing himself as the #1 lightweight in the world. Number 7. Fedor Emelianenko vs. Minaro Nogueira III. After 2 years and 15 wins between them, Fedor Emelianenko and Minaro Nogueira put their rivalry to bed in the main event of Pride Shockwave 2004. The two warriors had fought twice previously, with the then unknown Fedor beating Nogueira to win the Pride heavyweight title, while their rematch 18 months later was ruled a no contest after an accidental clash of heads. The fight was contested at a brisk pace, especially for heavyweight standards, Fedor hammering Nogueira with an early soccer kick and using his sambo to counter the Brazilian's takedowns, although Nogueira's durability and vaunted submissions made him opponent threat throughout the bout. It was a similar story in the final 2 rounds, Fedor gaining the upper hand in the striking as Nogueira constantly threatened submissions off of his back, the Russian doing just enough to evade danger at the last second. Nogueira's heroics would be in vain, as Fedor claimed the unanimous decision in a showcase outing for Pride's fabled heavyweight division, a worthy main event for what many consider one of the greatest cards in company history. Number 6. Don Frye vs. Yoshihiro Takayama. Pride's freak show fights were largely seen as low attractions. Don Frye's war with Yoshihiro Takayama is considered one of the company's most iconic bouts. A former UFC tournament champion, Fry was considered past his prime by 2002, leading to bosses booking him against pro wrestler Takayama, who was 0-2 in his MMA career. Fry had always been known for starting his matches in aggressive fashion, but few at the Saitama Super Arena were prepared for what happened next.
In Pride Fighting Championship demolition, and there's that right hand! They're duking it out, down right with right hand! Takayama!
What followed was one of the most infamous brawls in MMA history, as Fry and Takayama bludgeoned one another in the clinch for the next 6 minutes, discarding any attempt at striking defense and leaving Takayama unrecognizable by the second minute. It was clear Fry's striking was doing way more damage than his much larger opponent, forcing Takayama into an ill-judged takedown before finishing the match with ground and pound. Takayama would fight just once more in MMA before returning to pro wrestling, until his career was ended when he was paralyzed during a match in 2017. And can you guess who helped set up a campaign fundraiser to help pay his medical bills? That's right, none other than the legendary Don Fry. Number 5. Minaro Nogueira vs. Mirko Cro Cop. Antonio Minaro Nogueira was trademarked for his toughness and never-say-die attitude, and few fights showcased this better than his match with Mirko Cro Cop at Final Conflict 2003. Cro Cop dominated the opening stanza, stuffing an early Nogueira takedown and showing solid submission defense while landing left hammer fists. The stand-up was even more one-sided, with Cro Cop landing repeated kicks to the body and reducing Nogueira to baiting Cro Cop to the ground by laying on his back. By the time Cro Cop landed his trademark head kick at the end of the first, many had written off Nogueira's chances of claiming anything from the bout. But Big Nog, he's made of much tougher stone, getting the fight to the mat early in the second, and when Cro Cop gave up his arm attempting to buck his opponent, the Brazilian didn't need asking twice. The fight helped prepare Nogueira's stock after his labored win over Rico Rodriguez, as well as set the stage for his rematch with Fedor Emelianenko 12 months later. Number 4. Shogun Rua vs. Rogerio Nogueira. Shogun Rua's run in the 2005 Pride Grand Prix is considered one of the most impressive years in MMA history, but his toughest test came in the quarterfinals against Brazilian veteran Rogerio Nogueira. A frantic opening saw Shogun getting the upper hand, taking Nogueira down twice in the first 3 minutes before Nogueira dropped his young opponent with a big right hook. Shogun desperately looking for takedowns as Nogueira tagged him whenever the fight stayed on the feet. By the second round, Shogun's constant takedowns had taken a toll on Nogueira's casting, but the veteran continued to keep Shogun on his toes with submission attempts and flurries of success in the stand-up, only for Shogun to score his own knockdown and see out the rest of the fight with his ground and pound. While Shogun would go on to find further success in Pride, it was the Nogueira fight that legitimized his place as one of 205's elite fighters. The two men would square off twice more in the coming years, a worthy sequel taking place at UFC 190 before their trilogy came to a close on Fight Island 5 years later. Number 3. Nick Diaz vs. Takanori Gomi. Pride 33 marked the company's second and last event in America, so it was only appropriate that the hometown favorite Nick Diaz would end up stealing the show. Diaz entered the fight in muddy waters. Despite flashes of brilliance, the fighter was seen to have underachieved during a 6-4 run with the UFC, and was expected to pose little threat to the number 1 lightweight, Gomi. The fight started with a blazing pace, with Gomi scoring a takedown in the opening seconds, before the Fireball Kid welcomed Diaz to the feet after the Californian threatened with a Kimura attempt. From there, the match descended into chaos, Gomi dropping Diaz with a big right hook, only for Stockton's finest to recover and walk down the Fireball Kid for the remainder of the round, both men engaging in a stand-up war as Gomi began wilting to the sharper boxing of Diaz. Gomi showed signs of a second wind as he and Diaz continued trading at the start of the second round, but a 1-2 combination forced the Japanese fighter to shoot for a takedown. And that was when Diaz shocked the MMA world in more than one way. The fight marked the first time a Gogo Plata had been used in a major MMA promotion, and thrust the once maligned Diaz back among MMA's elites. The Californian, however, wouldn't enjoy his victory for long, after testing positive for marijuana with readings 12 times larger than the legal allowance, with the Nevada State Athletic Commission overturning the match to a no contest. Number 2. Vanderly Silva vs. Rampage Jackson 2. Vanderly Silva's first match with Quinton Rampage Jackson was a hard-fought showcase for two of Pride's biggest stars. Their middleweight title rematch at Pride 28 blew it out of the water. Vanderly was in the midst of a 16-fight unbeaten streak dating back to 2000, while Rampage booked his shot at a title with a highlight reel finish of Ricardo Arona. There was no feeling out between the two, the fight quickly turning into an all-action slugfest, with Vanderly gaining the upper hand with his trademark knees and hooks, before Rampage was able to score a takedown and later drop Vanderly with a right cross near the end of the round. The knockdown did little to deter Vanderly, as the Brazilian's mix of hooks, knees, and soccer kicks started taking a toll on Rampage's conditioning. A big right hook with a flurry of knees, spelling the end for the popular American.
Oh my God! Quinton Jackson has been knocked out with the right knee to the head.
It took 14 years and 2 further promotions for Rampage to exact revenge, finishing Silva in their trilogy bout at UFC 92 before leveling the series with a second-round knockout at Bellator 206. Number 1. Fedor Emelianenko vs. Mirko Cro Cop. For several years, fans speculated how a match between Fedor Emelianenko and Mirko Cro Cop would play out. Their eventual meeting at Final Conflict 2005 lived up to all expectations. The fight offered an intriguing challenge to both fighters. Fedor had never faced an opponent with the striking prowess of the former Special Forces officer, while Fedor's grappling and renowned game planning made him the perfect man to break Cro Cop's takedown defense. Both men moved graciously across the ring, with reactions much quicker than what fans were used to from heavyweights, Fedor neutralizing Cro Cop's trademark kicks and using the danger of these striking exchanges to transition to his ground game. Cro Cop was able to avoid the majority of Fedor's ground and pound and landed several of his own big blows in the stand-up. But Fedor's repeated takedowns and slight edge in top position won him a clear, unanimous decision. While the fight doesn't have the chaos or controversy of others on this list, the skill level, along with living up to its high expectations, makes it a worthy winner, and 20 years later remains a benchmark for heavyweight fights that is yet to be surpassed. But with that being said, that's just our opinion. How about yourselves? What do you consider to be the best Pride fights that didn't make our list? Please tell us, let us know by liking, sharing, and subscribing, posting your feedback in the comments, and donating to our Patreon for more exclusive content. This is the INC. Pride never dies.